Here.
Assistant City Attorney Doug Thornhill.
Here.
City Planner Armando Ornelas.
Here.
Thank you. First item on the agenda after the roll call is public comment. Anyone in the room who would like to make a comment for up to 3 minutes on either any item on the agenda or any item of general interest. You are limited to 3 minutes. So if you choose to come forward, please give your name and address. Anyone in the public like to speak? Thank you. I've closed that. I ask for approval of the agenda as written.
Second.
I have a movement and a second to approve the agenda as written. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Ask for approval of the minutes of the November 1st meeting.
Move to approve as submitted.
Second.
I have a move to approve and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any announcements or committee reports? Thank you. Any informational items? We are moving along. We are moving to the public hearing items, starting with item PCN 12039, ProTech.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. Tim Thompson, Senior Planner for the record. Before you tonight is a special use permit request to allow for the expansion of a nonconforming use. At the southwest corner of 18th Street and Victorian Avenue, there is currently a used car lot. That lot was issued a special use permit back in the 1980s and has continued to operate as a car lot since that time. Directly to the west, adjacent to, is a parcel that is under common ownership that is currently vacant. In the past, it's been problematic for the city, blighted, trash, debris, and we have a situation here where the property owner has actually come in and paved the site, and now they are looking at expanding their used car lot and allow their vehicles to be displayed on that adjacent parcel as well. The use is non-conforming. It was legally and lawfully established. However, under the current provisions of the code, a car auto sales is not a permitted use. The code has an allowance to expand a non-conforming use by up to 50% with the approval of a special use permit. The existing site is 15,000 square feet, and the adjacent parcel is 7,500 square feet, so it is right at 50%. Staff has considered this, and this property is zoned TOD. Certainly the desire would be to have a transit-oriented development type project. However, given the economic climate that we're in, staff believes that in this particular case it makes sense to allow the property owner to expand their use onto this particular parcel so that it provides some economic value to the city, with the hopes that down the road, as this parcel becomes more valuable, and considering that there are no structures that are proposed to be built on it, it is simply a parking lot for all intent and purposes, that this site could easily be redeveloped in the future as the whatever plan is in place would recommend. So based on that, staff is recommending approval for this, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Tim?
I have one for Tim. Tim, there isn't landscaping there already, is there?
Correct. There is no landscaping on the existing site. With this application, staff is, and as conditioned in this report, staff is requiring that they provide 10 feet of landscaping along both the Victorian and 18th Street frontages. And so, Victorian Avenue, there we have the Victorian Avenue streetscape that's along there. Victorian Avenue, there's a lot of talk about it being a gateway to the city, so I think that this is a reasonable exchange, if you will. We're going to get some nice landscaping along the frontage, and they're going to be able to take advantage of that vacant piece of property.
Well, Tim, do you know also the landscape legend? Will that plant material that's in the legend, will all that be included? That's in the legend itself? Because there's quite a bit. There was this.
Yeah, I know that they provided us with the plan, and I would say that that plan right now is more conceptual. When they submit a plan to the city, they are required to comply with the ordinance. And in this case, we would go back to 2032, which is the landscaping ordinance.
Okay.
A minimum of 15% of the site, 10-foot landscaping along the front, and then we're trying to achieve 90% coverage over the entire site. Now, I will say that this is in a redevelopment district, so the administrator, we do have some leeway as far as the amount or type of landscaping. So if they came forward to us with a true xeriscape type plan, we would happily consider that.
Okay. Thank you, Tim.
Tim, in the back, it shows existing cedar fence, so that's going to be the final one there is around the existing and the...
Correct. Along the alley there at the
Right.
rear of the property, there is an existing cedar fence, and that is proposed to remain.
Any other questions for Tim? Is the applicant or applicant's representative here, would like to speak at all?
He's covered it all.
All right, thank you. This is a public hearing item. Does anyone would like to, in the public that would like to speak on this agenda item, if you would, come forward. You have 3 minutes to speak. If not, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Any other questions for the applicant or for Tim on this issue? All right. I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion. I move to approve the special use permit associated with PCN 12039 to allow the expansion of a non-conforming use, a used car lot, adopting findings S1 through S6 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report, subject to the conditions of approval 1 through 7 as listed in this staff report.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve the special use permit. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Good luck with your project. Second item is PCN 12038, Regional Transportation Commission.
Good evening. For the record, Karen Melby, Senior Planner. Before you tonight is a consideration of impossible action on a special use permit to allow a borrow site in conformance with the Hillside Ordinance, Sparks Municipal Code 2099, on a site with slopes greater than 10% over 25% or more of the site. This is the property that's in question. This is the particular area that they're looking at for the borrow site. You can see here's the Truckee River. This is the industrial area, and kind of gives you a feel for where it is. The applicant is proposing to excavate materials east of the hill of the Truckee Meadow Water Reclamation Facility for the construction of the Southeast Connector Road. Hopefully. I guess that's as far as I would go. You see, this is the sewer treatment plant. This is the area that they're interested in excavating. The Southeast Connector is a proposed 6-lane roadway. The alignment originates at the north of the intersection of Sparks Boulevard and Gregg Street and passes past the Tom Wharf. Here is a photograph showing the alignment superimposed on an aerial photograph. The blue line represents the Truckee River, and then this is a steamboat ditch. I've highlighted the pink as the Clearwater Way. The proposed extraction area which is just off of this, it would be just north of this aerial photograph, consists of native vegetation with the majority of the area existing disturbed area. The construction of the Tom Wharf facility extracted this hillside, and the this proposed borrow site will further cut into this hill. The total area for the borrow site is approximately 8 acres. Based on the calculations from Sparks Municipal Code 29.9, the maximum allowable area for disturbance would be 5 acres. This borrow site is proposing to disturb approximately 8 acres. Although the proposed borrow site will disturb more than the maximum allowable area, it's staff's opinion that the benefits of the shorter haul of the borrow materials and the additional area for staging and possible expansion of the Tom Wharf facility outweighs the impacts of the additional disturbance area. The slope analysis is based on the area to be disturbed, but this property is actually 247 acres. The disturbance is of approximately, as I said, 8 acres. The proposed borrow site does meet the intentions of the standards outlined in Chapter 29.9 of the Sparks Municipal Code. Staff is recommending approval with 13 conditions. The conditions mitigate the borrow site with the requirement of a grading permit, which will be approved by the city, address the impacts on the operation of the treatment facility, and the wear on the Clearwater Way. This concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Karen?
I'd rather listen to the applicant.
Maybe. Do we have anyone from the applicant or applicant representative here? Come on down.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Garth Oaksall. I'm the project manager with the Regional Transportation Commission. Karen did a great job of summarizing the overall permit application that was submitted, and I'm here if you have any questions regarding the project itself or what kind of expand on our intentions with that borrow site.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question. On the haul that you're going to do, and, I like that it's so close and everything, what are you going to use to haul that material? What kind of vehicle?
Yeah, the contractor that we have, we just recently came to agreement with them, is Kiewit Western. They're still looking at what we'll use for hauling vehicles. It'll either be your normal 18-wheeler type trucks that you would see, or what are called haul packs, which are your typical off-road dump trucks. You'd be used to seeing those in large earthwork operations like around mines and stuff like that. So they're still looking at that. We'll probably end up with the larger construction equipment.
Okay. You're also, it shows here in the condition that you have to do it within 1 year.
Correct.
Are you okay with that, or you feel that 300,000?
Yes, yeah. This time, one of the first activities we'll be doing is first off, taking material out of the area because of the flood zone requirements, but we'll start building that embankment up so we have a safe, dry spot to work from in case we happen to get another flood event.
Exactly.
I looked at this at length, but can you explain to me a little bit about what the project site will look like after you complete it, in the sense of being potential expansion for the Tom Wharf facility?
Yeah, that's a great question. And let me see if I can. Does your packet contain an image that is similar to this? This is not a color version, but let me flip it around so north is up.
Yes, we do have that.
Okay.
We were given that.
Okay, good. What you would see here is this is the existing treatment plant that Karen previously showed.
Right.
This area right here is virtually going to be flat. That's probably about 5 acres of the total 8 acres that you talked about. So that would be area that the plant could expand to in the future. What you see back here with these parallel lines in this area and in here is going to be what's a 2-to-1 slope. For every foot you go up, or 2 feet you go up, you'll go out a foot. So it'll be a fairly steep embankment on there. But we will have a series of 2 benches in there, and that's to help with erosion. if any, material were to start to fall off that, those benches would catch that, as well as if any maintenance vehicles needed to be up there to help clean that out in the future. So from a visual standpoint, it'll look more of a natural type of rock face to the backside of that, with approximately 5 acres or so of that being relatively flat for future expansion.
Okay, thank you.
Let's talk existing in that area. It has been disturbed already, right?
Correct, yes.
So it's a disturbed area that's people evidently have been hauling from or something for some years past, right?
My understanding is the area was previously excavated down slightly when Tumwharf, the plant itself, was built. Recently, they've used that area for access for the railroad yards. There's a little maintenance road that goes back in there. But for the most part, it's an open, barren dirt area. There's, like the report says, a little bit of vegetation, but that's really on the very peripheral.
Right, and that's kind of, I saw, essentially you're going to clean up and it's going to look more natural.
Yeah,
right, Art?
currently it's a series of benches and platforms kind of all over. It looks like when material's been needed, they would go in and pull some out, and then, a few years later, they'd go to another spot, pull some out. So, yeah, we'll make it a very, pleasant from the standpoint of expansion. It'll be very easy to expand, yes.
All right, in your discussions with the sewer treatment, it gives them some location to expand in the future. Right?
Correct. My understanding is this was the area that they had originally anticipated expanding to the east. So the fact that it was really kind of a win-win situation. They had already identified this area for expansion in the future, and we're right on the same parcel needing material to build the embankment.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, yeah. Garth, I did hear you mention erosion control, where there'll be also a sediment plan with that?
Correct, yes. There is, in addition to the benches that will be there, there is
Right.
also another ditch running along the very bottom of this. And we've done, when our geotech is looking at the overall drainage area in there to make sure that we adequately design the ditches and the benches to handle anything. It's a very small drainage area. Whatever we happen to get is going to be handled in kind of a bioswale, if you will, at the very base of this surrounding that flat area. So any sediment that could come off will be captured in that bioswale.
Okay, thank you, Garth.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing item. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak on this item? You have up to 3 minutes. Yes. If you could come forward and state your name and your address, please.
My name's Tom Dinsmore, at 1395 Spice Island.
Thank you.
That's on the intersection of Franklin and Spice Island. Is this thing here?
Absolutely. Sure.
One thing I'm a little concerned about is if you were to take a line going south on Sparks Boulevard through that meadow on the south side of the river, I've heard nobody in this room speak of the environmental impact to wildlife in that area. And there is a significant amount of wildlife there. We can look out our office window and see up to 75 deer almost on a daily basis in that field. In the river bottom, you can see right here, that is probably 100 feet west of where the road, if you go another 100 feet past those deer there in the river, you would be on the western side of that street going south once it's extended. Now, this is almost a daily occurrence. When we moved into that building, the city building inspector came in there, and he was amazed that that kind of wildlife was there. This is another photograph, probably 20 yards south of the river. And you can see there's quite a habitat there. Now, where they want to put the borrow pit, though I didn't take this picture, a friend of mine did, but east of where they want, east of the sewer plant, and east of that acreage where they're going to take the dirt out, this is another group of animals. And I think somebody should be paying attention to that area that is west of the proposed road extension. I see the yellow border that they're requesting goes quite a bit further west than I think it need to be because of the wildlife that's in there. And if the equipment's taking out of that area to the east of the plant, you can see it's going to disturb these animals. I don't think a lot of forethought was put into that. Now, south of Clearwater and just to the east side of the proposed road extension, there's been anywhere from this small group here up to about 25 horses in that area right there that come down out of the mountains to feed courtesy of the university field and to get water out of the steamboat. I think is it a creek or whatever they call that steamboat ditch. So I think that some attention to wildlife ought to be taken into consideration on this thing. I think that area is a little bit too broad for what they really need to do. They could still access that acreage from the south side of Clearwater and go up over to the south side of the sewer plant. There is an old road that was cut in here at one time. But that's all I basically have to say. I just want somebody to have some concern for the wildlife. There's also a lot of skunk and raccoons and everything else in there. And also the walk path that Sparks put in goes along there. So I don't know what the plan is to cut that extension or what they're going to do with it. Thank you.
May I ask you a question before you go? Most of the issues that you talked about, I think are great issues, but they seem to be areas that ultimately the actual extension of the street and the new road will impact, as opposed to this particular project.
Yeah, but this project, I see where your request for the borrow pit goes quite a ways west of the actual road. That's my concern.
Thank you.
And then I see it goes right up to the river on the west side as well as the east side where that other picture was taken. So that's my concern, is how close are they going to be allowed to go to the river to start disturbing the area.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. Can we have the applicant come back and perhaps respond?
Yeah, thank you. Again, for the record, Garth Oaksall, Project Manager with the RTC. The gentleman brings up some excellent points regarding wildlife, and just for a matter of record, as a whole for the project, we developed a resource agency team where we brought in every agency, federal, state, local, as well as organized groups such as the Sierra Club or Nature Conservancy, and we met monthly for 8 weeks. And one of the items that was discussed at length is the wildlife, not only the deer, but the horses and the rabbits that are in the area. I consulted personally with the Nevada Division of Wildlife regarding the deer. The 1,300-foot-long bridge that we have in the area provides more than adequate visual view for the deer to get from one side to the other side of the road. Basically, an ungulate or a hoofed animal, if they can see the horizon, they will go towards it. And obviously, we have over 1,000 feet of viaduct, and it's approximately 14 feet tall. The expert with NDOW felt that that was more than sufficient to allow continual movement of these animals east and west of the actual alignment. In addition to that, the bridge at Cleanwater Way is also 54 feet open and 16.5 feet tall. That also provides more than enough space for ungulate population to get from one side to the other. As far as the Barrow site, there is a buffer for the Truckee River. If anyone's familiar with that area, or perhaps I could find an image here, there's an existing power line that runs in that area, and we stay south of that power line. So here's the river. I believe the gentleman, some of the pictures he showed, and I've seen them out there personally, the horses are kind of off in this flatter area up in here. This is quite steep terrain. We're right here. Here's the power line. That's what this black line is right here. We're within that power line. We do not go north of that power line, so we're not up against the river there where some of the vegetation is and some of the migratory patterns of the deer and the horses are. They like to stay near the river for the adequate, or for the access to the water there. So again, you can see in this picture here, there's very minimal vegetation. The road that he mentioned, we're not traversing in this area. We actually are following the existing road there on the south side of the plant, as the gentleman mentioned. So the existing road that's there, that is the one that we will be utilizing to access the Barrow site there to the east of the plant.
Another question, we were talking about the path that's going along the river. What are you going to do with that? I would assume we're on the north side.
Yeah, there's a couple of
Existing.
paths in the area that we'll
Yeah.
be connecting to. There's the Truckee River path,
Right.
as well as the path on the west side of Sparks Boulevard. Right now, those connect with a little kind of meandering path just south of Gregg Street. We'll be continuing that connection, as well as picking up and bringing another path. We've called it a 10-foot multi-use path, and that will extend the entire 5.5 miles all the way down to South Meadows Parkway to connect with the paths down in the Double Diamond and Demonte Ranch area. So we'll, not only does the road provide interconnectivity for vehicular traffic, but also pedestrian, any cyclists or other recreational users that would want to get to the Truckee River trails or the pathways in South Reno. So that connection will still be maintained. The bridge actually spans the Truckee River bike path as it is today.
Okay.
We'll span over it.
Correct, yes.
Right.
Any other questions for Garth?
So this southeast connector's a go.
Yes.
It's about time.
Yes, we start construction on Phase 1 towards the end of January, which will, the first part of that will be the bridge over the river.
Okay. Thank you, Garth.
All right, thank you, Garth.
Thank you.
Any other questions for,
Where was another option for getting the dirt to build up the road?
Just to show how far you had been driving.
Yeah, the nearest spot that we had probably identified was going to be Lockwood. We did not run through the exercises of determining how much material was available out there, if it was the proper material, because this material site really came to light very early on in the process. But the next nearest aggregate source that has sufficient quantity would be the Lockwood pit, and that's out east of Interstate 80. So there'd be significant truck traffic added to the Interstate 80 corridor to bring in 300,000 cubic yards of material.
thank you, Garth. Any other questions?
Ready for a motion?
I am ready, sir.
All right, I'd like to make a motion. I move to approve special use permit associated with PCN 12038, adopting findings S1 through S7, and the facts supporting these findings is set forth in this staff report, subject to the conditions approval 1 through 13 as listed in this staff report.
I have a motion and a second to approve the motion to approve the special use permit. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Next one.
We move on to item 10, PCN 12040, Regional Transportation Commission.
That's right. That's a continued one.
Good evening. Karen
Right.
Melby, Senior Planner. This item, RTC was not quite prepared to present this, go forward at this time. They are working out some issues with the property or the person who will be developing or building the radio tower. So they have requested that we continue this item. So staff is recommending that this item be continued to the January 17th Planning Commission hearing.
I assume we do not need a motion to continue this item.
You do have to open the public hearing. It was noticed, so you do need to
Oh,
open
there
the
was,
public
there
hearing.
was
Right,
notice. Okay, very fine. Thank you very much. Since this is a public hearing item, is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak on this item? If not, I'll close the public hearing, and I'll accept a motion to continue this to the next meeting.
Second.
A move and a second to continue this item until the next meeting. All in favor?
That's January 17th.
The 17th, not the
that's right.
January 3rd.
We're not,
You're having a special meeting on January 3rd.
I apologize.
So I want to make that
So we will be
clarification.
continuing this till the January 17th meeting.
Correct.
Was the person who made the motion and the person who seconded okay with that? Yes. Thank you. All in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? Continue to the 17th. Item number 11, PCN 12043, LGM Investments.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Tim Thompson, Senior Planner for the record. This item was not noticed correctly And so staff is going to ask you to go ahead and open the public hearing and then continue this item to January 3rd. And we'll make sure that we get it noticed correctly this time.
Thank you. I'll open the public hearing on this item, PCN 12043. Anyone in the audience like to speak? Close the public hearing. I'll accept a motion to continue this to the 3rd of January meeting.
Second.
I have a movement and a second to continue this. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Continue to the 3rd of January meeting. Thank you, Tim.
All right.
Item 12, PCN 12029, Rising Tides, LLC.
Hey, it's Karen again.
Yeah, it's me again.
Nice scarf.
Thank you. For the record, Karen Melby, Senior Planner. Before you tonight is a consideration of impossible action on the amendment to a final plan development plan handbook for Kiley Ranch North Phase 3, which originally the Phase 3 was this property, and now they are going to be including this entire area as Phase 3. The request is to change about approximately 12 acres from high-density residential and 29.8 acres of neighborhood commercial to all community commercial, totaling the area of 101 acres. This is Pyramid Highway here to give some people reference. This would be Sparks Boulevard, and this is at Lazy 5. Besides amending the land uses within the handbook, they are proposing changes to the standards for development for the commercial land uses. The standards include, but are not limited to, landscape, architecture, and site development standards. The tentative handbook was approved with NCCC and HR for this area. The amendment, as I stated, is to change it all to community commercial, and also to allow approximately 40 acres of the 101 acres to be a medical campus. Staff is of the opinion that the final handbook could potentially vary 3 of the 5 standards or criteria in the NRS for final handbooks. Due to that fact, this request is an amendment to the recorded handbook, and the staff determined that a public hearing would be required in fulfillment, which that's what this public hearing will be tonight. Based on the criteria listed in the NRS, staff is of the opinion that the amendment complements and contributes to creating a mixed-use community and also a job housing balance within the Spanish Springs, and particularly in the Kiley Ranch North plan development. Therefore, staff feels that it furthers the interests of the residents of the Kiley Ranch North plan development handbook, or the development itself. Staff is recommending approval based on the findings set forth in the staff report. That concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Karen? Is the
Let's get the
applicant
applicant.
or applicant's representative here?
Usually they answer.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening. Melissa Lindell with Wood Rogers. I'm here on behalf of Rising Tides, and I also have Steve Toponia in the audience as well. I think Karen did a great job summarizing the existing situation and our proposal. We worked really hard with the staff on working out the issues, the design issues, kind of like we did on the previous handbook that you just saw for planning unit or phase number 4. So with that, I think I'd be available to answer any questions that you have specifically about this.
Was there a notice to residents around this area, and did you get any response from those notices?
Karen, city issue.
We did kind of send out notices of 750 feet within the whole plan development area, and we have not received any phone calls or any written correspondence on that.
Oh, not any?
No.
Wow.
Very interesting.
Mr. Chairman, how many beds would the medical center have approximately?
Well, it would go in phases, and at build out, it would be 300.
300 plus. somewhere around there. So it'd be a large.
Right, it would be a phased facility, kind of similar to what you see in South Meadows. It'd be built up over time.
Right.
What is the time frame for that?
Well,
Hard to say.
it's going to be a while because it really depends on,
Your economic forecast.
how the medical, the whole health insurance and
Right.
new changes go and how fast Spanish Springs grows, things like that.
Can you talk about the area outside of any potential medical campus? What kinds of usage might potentially,
To the north and,
in the rest of the area that...
okay, the rest of the area. Well, this is the 40 acres that is the medical campus. And then up here, this was always the community commercial, and they were, at one point, had some big box users that were interested in it. So that's kind of what that would be targeted to. And on this other side, be probably complementary to the campus. And we see the uses that are allowed in there are offices, medical offices, and support commercial and things like that. So that's what I kind of see for the area, the big box, more shopping center uses to the north, possibly other lighter commercial uses or offices to the south. But that's just what I see, so.
I understand.
I was a little surprised, we've spent quite a bit of time branding and getting the name Sparks into everything. And, I'm looking through this thing and I'm seeing it's called Spanish Springs. It's in Spark. Has there been some thought of using the word Sparks in this?
There was some discussion on that from the staff, and maybe Steve Toponia could describe that, but I think there was quite a marketing effort to brand it as more of a regional thing.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members, I'm Steve Toponia. I'm the Director of Real Estate for Renown Health. We went through a very long branding campaign and a very intense study campaign when we went from Washoe Health to Renown. The same process ensued for Renown South Meadows Medical Center, which is 39.8 acres. And the same type of input throughout the community we have already done, and the choice was to name it Renown Spanish Springs, and someday Renown Spanish Springs Medical Center. If you're familiar with South Meadows, the current facilities are on 20 acres, and the 19.8 acres are in reserve to the south. We're looking towards future growth of our community and its viability, and we're very happy to have an opportunity to acquire land before it's needed, because when it is needed, it's either not available or way too expensive.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, and I agree with my partner over there. In your final development handbook, it has community vision. Kylie Ranch North is planned to become an emerging region commercial and employment business center situated in a strategic location within the city of Sparks. The economic sustainability. The goal is to provide a net positive fiscal impact to the city of Sparks. Your project description. Due to the project's significant regional location, it has a great opportunity to develop into a suburban core center for northern Sparks area. And I agree. I think the city of Sparks should be included. I know the sign we got's conceptual, so, you talk about Reno, and, Reno's already in Renown. That's basically where Renown came from. It's from Reno. So, I like to see, Renown Sparks Medical Center, or Renown North Sparks Medical Center, or Renown Sparks Spanish Springs Medical Center. I don't think 5 letters of Sparks would have that much of an impact in the design or anything. That's my views. I'm a diehard Sparks fan, and you talk about Spanish Springs, everybody thinks that's an unincorporated area out there. Spanish Springs, people think, well, that's Washoe County. No, it isn't. That's Sparks. So somehow I think that whether the Design Review Committee or the City of Sparks staff or somebody should include the Sparks in there somewhere. That's my own personal views, and
I'd be happy to take your comments back. I would, for clarity's sake, say that Reno is not renowned. Renown has a totally different meaning, and it's the type of care that we want to provide to our community. A renowned type of atmosphere where we touch every patient the same way, every day.
And other questions for the applicant? Yes.
What size, how many beds do you have in the South Meadows? Is that, did you say about 300?
There's 120 there today.
Oh, okay, good, yeah, I didn't think it was that.
We have
many. Okay.
entitlements for another 250-bed tower down there.
I was just curious more than anything. Thank you.
How many stories high are you looking at of a building here?
In the proposal, we asked for a maximum height of 170 feet. When we do need the hospital down there, the crystal ball doesn't tell us what the economic environment will be. I can tell you that it's much, much cheaper and much more expeditious to build it all at once, or at least build it all up and shell it. But if we're not able to do that, and the community needs the facilities out there, then we have a phased approach. So both are shown here, because our crystal ball is still foggy.
Sure. But 170 feet would be the max?
Yes, sir. And we are using the slope. There's about a 20-foot slope so that we can terrace from the first phase, underground decking for receiving trucks and stuff, to do it in a very thoughtful manner for the community.
Any other questions? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing item. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this item? If not, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission. Any additional questions for any, either staff or the applicants?
Are you prepared for a motion?
I am.
I move to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council of PCN 12029 on the final handbook amendment based on the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report.
Is there a second? Second. A motion and a second to move this forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, and good luck with the project. Item number 13, PCN 12036, City of Sparks.
Good evening, Jim Rundle, Senior Planner, here to present a zoning change sponsored by the City of Sparks. As the Planning Commission knows, the City of Sparks has a zoning authority and can sponsor zoning changes on properties within its jurisdiction. The Planning Commission is familiar with a few applicants that have come through in the past 2 years or so requesting that their lands be rezoned in the Conductor Heights area, as Sparks residents are familiar with it as calling it. On the overhead here is a vicinity map. To the north, you can see the rail yard. The green area here is the City of Sparks, what used to be the Public Works yard, and it still is. And then 21st, well, we don't call it Public Works anymore.
We call it Public Works Maintenance.
Public Works
There you
Maintenance
go.
Yard.
And it still
Thank you.
I didn't have any dollars to put in the bin.
And you didn't wear pink.
And you didn't wear pink.
And Rock Boulevard is right here. As explained in the staff report, really quickly, this area started as residential in the early 1900s, and that's where it got the name Conductor Heights. People from the railroad lived in the area. As the rail became more prominent, Interstate 80 came through,
the airport was airport was constructed, flight paths came in, the area began to be cut off from the commercial corridor, which was B Street at the time. So some of the residents moved out of the area, moved north into the city of what we know as the city of Sparks. In 1980, the area was rezoned to industrial with a transitional overlay on it so that the area would be compatible with the surrounding uses as it was turning into industrial. The transitional overlay essentially required all of the uses in that vicinity to come in for a special use permit. So if you looked in the industrial zoning code and say office, you looked at office was a permitted use. Anywhere else, an office would go right in with a business license. In this area, it would be required to go through a special use permit so that all of the neighbors would be notified, all of the residents, would be notified of what uses could be potentially impacting their residents and therefore potentially have the ability to request the Planning Commission impose certain conditions. Here it is in 2012, it is staff's opinion that the transitional overlay has served its intent. Over 32 years, it is staff's opinion that the residential has had the time to move to other areas, and also those parcels that are zoned industrial with the transitional overlay are at a disadvantage to parcels that are zoned straight industrial because they have to utilize the special use permit process for every use to go in there. Most of the residents in the area have moved out, from what I can tell, in a site visit. There is still a mobile home park that is down there, and from what I can tell, it looks like, this is just driving through the streets, about 15 units still being utilized as residential. And like I said, it's not a scientific door-knocking approach. It was just driving through, and from what I could tell. Staff's been able to make all of the findings for proposing that the transitional overlay be removed, and has proposed that to the city council, or to the Planning Commission. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions for Jim?
Well, no comments. You've received nothing from the public on this?
I've received about a dozen phone calls.
Okay.
The two essentially classifications of calls. One, will my property taxes be affected? The answer is no. I verified that with the Washoe County assessor, and they are assessing it as industrial anyway. So to remove the transition designation will not affect the assessment of the property. The second question is, if they're utilizing it as residential, can they continue to utilize it as residential? Residential is a non-conforming use currently. It's been a non-conforming use since 1980-ish, when they rezoned it from the residential to industrial. So it goes back to, as long as you continue the use, you will be able to keep the grandfathered clause of the residential.
You were saying that you noticed the residents. Are you noticing the residents or the owners of the property?
If I said notice the residents, that's incorrect. We noticed the property owners of the parcels that the assessor provides us with. We noticed all of the property owners within the light blue area on your maps, and all of the property owners within 750 feet of those properties.
Okay. And no comments from any of the residential, the owners that may be renting out. We know of a few of them because we've seen some other cases, but that's about it.
Like I said, the two comments were essentially, can I continue to utilize my rental units as residential? Answer is yes. And will my property taxes be affected? Those are the only two that I had.
Great.
All right. Any other questions for Jim? Thank you. You are representing the city of Sparks, so I guess the applicant has spoken. Is that correct?
Yes, sure. You can speak twice.
Unless someone else out there in a pink shirt wants to speak.
In a picture. That's so good.
This is a public hearing item, so I will open it up to the public hearings. Anyone in the audience like to speak on this item, this agenda item? Yes. Come right on down. Come right on down. Please state your name and your address and into the microphone so that it can be recorded, please. And whatever you'd like to say.
Now, we need your real name, sir.
Okay. Harold Baker at 1903 Fraser Avenue. I'm just interested in finding out if the same situations where if there's somebody coming in like that takes out asbestos or something rather to store it on an area near me, and will I be told whether or not that's going to happen when this change comes about? Or
Can we let Jim address that topic?
Sure. If the area were to be rezoned and remove the transitional overlay designation, someone comes in to store hazardous chemicals on the site, they'll still be required to do a special use permit. Essentially, they'll be required to comply with the industrial zoning code standards. Planning Commission is more familiar with that. What uses require a special use permit in the industrial area and what uses don't. So storage of hazardous materials on the site would require a special use permit if it meets that NRS threshold that this Planning Commission recently reviewed. I can't think off the top of my head all of the uses that require a special use permit in the industrial area. An example that seems to be popular right now would be a recreation facility. The recreation facility came in to utilize one of the sites that's currently zoned with the transitional overlay. They would have to do a special use permit. So what staff, the Planning Commission, and City Council have adopted in the industrial zoning code as special uses that may impact properties, those will still have to go through the special use permit process on these parcels.
sounds good. All right. Answer that one.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Any other member of the public like to speak? If not, any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I move to forward a recommendation to the City Council to rezone 59 parcels associated with PCN 11017 from IT Industrial Transition Overlay to I Industrial based on findings Z1 through Z3 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to move forward a recommendation to the City Council. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
You're back again.
Don't leave, Jim.
Don't leave. Stay with us. Yes, there you go.
Jim Rundle, Senior Planner, here to present a code amendment to the
Item number 14, CA 6-12, City of Sparks. Jim, move right forward.
Apologize. Jim Rundle, Senior Planner, here to present a code amendment to the Sparks Planning Commission. Earlier this year, the City Council directed staff to conduct a series of interviews and an analysis of the Sparks zoning code and try to identify perceived barriers to development in the City of Sparks. While numerous code amendments will be considered in the future, the Planning Commission has already reviewed some of these amendments, including special use permit expiration dates and such. The one that we're proposing to the Planning Commission today has to do with expiration dates of an approved special use permit. Approved special use permit, not an established special use permit. So what we're talking about today, someone comes in, receives approval from the Sparks Planning Commission, and essentially the Planning Commission is accustomed to having the expiration date in the list of conditions. That expiration date is in the Sparks Municipal Code and is listed as 1 year. Today's amendment is proposing to change that 1 year on special use permits and also site plan reviews, which are administrative reviews that staff does in-house, from 1 year to 2 years. Now, that would also still allow for the 1 year extension to the Planning Commission. Now, the Planning Commission, some of the veteran planning commissioners may remember applicants coming in and asking for a 1 year extension, essentially providing them up to 2 years. If this code amendment was to be approved, ultimately, an applicant may have the ability to go up to 3 years. So essentially, what staff is proposing today is a 2-year expiration date and not changing the 1 year and allowing them to still come in and ask for a 1 year extension. And that concludes my presentation.
We had some discussions Tuesday at the study session, Jim, about the possibility of there be situations where the Planning Commission members would feel like 2 years was too long of a time to tie up a site or whatever.
Yes.
And we were talking about whether there were situations where we could provision that shorter than the 2 years. And did you have some conversation about that?
It is. We did. It is staff's opinion that the Planning Commission would not be able to change from the 2-year expiration date. The Planning Commission's authority would essentially be in the not allowing up to a year if the applicant came back and asked for a 1 year extension. You could modify the 1 year extension, but it is staff's opinion that the 2 years would be in the municipal code, and the Planning Commission would essentially not be able to reduce that.
Okay.
Or deny it, the extension.
Well,
I
I believe that you may have the ability to deny an extension.
Yeah.
When the applicant comes forward currently with their 1 year is almost up, and they ask the Planning Commission to grant them a 1 year extension, there is nothing that says you have to grant them a 1 year extension.
But again, you went through this, what we were discussing, because you could see we had some concerns of making blanket 2 years. But your feeling is if we change this thing to 2 years, it's 2 years on every project if we approve that. And then the additional 1 year, we could say yes or no. But we couldn't, staff did not feel that was acceptable to say, the maximum 2 year.
From what I understand, the question is, if the code says 24 months and the special use permit comes forward to the Planning Commission, can the Planning Commission reduce it, for example, to 12 months?
Right.
It is our opinion that the Planning Commission could not reduce the 24 months or the 2 years. That will be written in the municipal code. It's currently in the municipal code. We kind of write it on there as a reminder to the applicant that they have 1 year to establish the use, and they may ask for a 1 year extension. But no, it is staff's opinion that the Planning Commission would not be able to reduce it from 2 years.
Okay. Thank you. Yes.
Jim, most of the time when we see that happen, it's financial problems, right? That the reason that they ask for the extension? It seems like to me that...
I don't know that I could classify
everything.
That's a difficult question to answer. There are definitely times where financing is been difficult to obtain or put together, and they need the extra year. But there are other variables.
Economics change. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Jim. Any other questions for Jim? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair?
Oh, this is a public hearing item. Excuse me. I will open it to the public. Any members of the public like to speak on this? Bring it back to the commission. Close the public hearing. Now I will entertain a motion.
I move to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council of the code amendment associated with CA 6-12.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to move forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. We are on item CA 7-12, City of Sparks, item 15.
Jim Rundle, Senior Planner, here to present a code amendment ultimately sponsored by the Sparks City Council. originally sponsored. This code amendment proposal is similar to what we just talked about. As I said, the City of Sparks staff has been reviewing the municipal code and trying to identify perceived barriers to development in the City of Sparks. The Planning Commission, more familiar with special use permits, may be familiar with an approval, has a 21-day appeal period attached to it. So tonight, the Planning Commission approved a special use permit. Approved a special use permit. There's a 21-day appeal period that any stakeholder has the right to come to the clerk's office and make an appeal on that item. When we did our interviews with the Planning Commission, with the City Council, with stakeholders, one thing that they identified was that the 21-day appeal period was too long. Most appeals come in within a couple of business days, and it allows staff to get it on the most convenient City Council meeting. So what staff is proposing today is to reduce the 21-day appeal period to what the staff report says is 10 days. Staff would like to propose that the Planning Commission consider additional language to clarify that we would like it to be calendar days, whereas the 21 days was business days. We'd like to go to 11.
Jim, that's backwards.
Okay, I'm sorry. What we'd like to go to is 11 calendar days, where the staff report doesn't say that, but what staff would like to propose to the Planning Commission today is 11 business days.
And as it stands now, the 21 days was 21 working.
11 calendar days. I'm sorry. I'm confusing the Planning Commission. I apologize.
Sure. What is it currently? 21?
21 days.
Calendar days, or business days currently?
21 calendar days.
All right.
Right.
And what we'd like to move it to is 11
business days.
11 calendar days.
11 calendar days.
11
calendar
versus
days.
calendar.
Okay.
11 calendar days. I'm sorry.
Business
I
days,
apologize.
not in either case at this point.
Right. So we'd like to go, we're proposing that we go to 11.
What's the significance of 11 versus 10?
I'll defer to,
So, in the Nevada Rules of Civil Procedure, the way you compute time is that any period that's less than 11 days is always computed in business days. Whereas if it's 11 days or more, it's calendar days. You count weekends and holidays and the like. Thursdays, too.
The attorney speaks.
This is just an example of, we get the Planning Commission a staff report, and we still continue to review what we've proposed to the Planning Commission, and that came in, we identified that after you had your report.
Right. And Jim, the reason for changing this is better assurance earlier, so projects can get started earlier? Is that what
Right.
the main purpose of this?
I don't know a percentage, but most projects, special use permits, or staff decisions are not appealed. And an applicant has to wait those 21 days to get a building permit. This would allow them to move forward to a building permit quicker and let them get started quicker, or establish their use. Maybe they don't need a building permit, but essentially get their business license.
Or know that
and
there's an appeal.
Establish their use. Now, if there's an appeal, we can get it to a city council meeting earlier. As I talked about at the study session, we also added that if an appeal comes in, the applicant who's appealing it has to identify exactly what they're appealing so that staff can address that to the city council.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a question for Jim. I want to see if you know as much as our attorney, Doug. What is it here in the appeal process, 2007-030? The city council shall review the matter de novo. What does that mean?
That they have to...
Well, we're asking staff.
Come on.
I told you the answer to this question.
Yeah, we did talk about it. I believe that it was, well, now I'd have to be guessing. But from what I remember, that they were going to be reviewing it in the case that, I'll let Doug answer.
It means anew. De novo. It means anew. And what At bottom, what it means is that the decision of the Planning Commission is not entitled to deference in front of the City Council. They can do what they want.
Start all over.
Got
again.
it.
Start all over again. I have a question for the Mr. Attorney. When we make a motion to approve this, do we have to make a motion with the amendment of 11 versus 10 days?
Yes, please.
All right. I will accept a motion from someone.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I move to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council of the code amendment associated with CA 7-12 that to...
It's a public hearing, Adam. Anyone in the public wishes to speak, close the public hearing. I'll accept the motion.
Okay, let's do that again. I move to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council of the code amendment associated with CA 7-12 that to include 11 calendar days.
Second.
We have a motion to send the amended motion forward to the City Council. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. We are on to general business items. Review of Sparks Planning Commission rules of procedure for possible action.
Wow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, Tim Thompson, Senior Planner for the record. This is simply a review of your Planning Commission's rules and procedures. Earlier this year, you had reviewed those and some changes were made. Staff has subsequently gone back and made some additional textual changes, grammatical changes, format changes. There's nothing of substance here, so...
Were you going to add in their meeting time start at 6?
No, that's
Or was
the
that-
next item.
Oh,
That's
okay.
a separate item.
Commissioner Peterson.
Not
Do we, I think we've all reviewed that. I don't know that there are any questions. Does this need a motion to?
Please, if you could go ahead and just make a motion to adopt these rules
I'll
and
accept the
procedures.
motion to adopt these rules of procedures as outlined.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the procedures as outlined. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 17, discussion and possible action regarding a change in the starting time for Sparks Planning Commission meetings.
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Tim Thompson, Senior Planner for the record. There's been some discussion in the last couple of months from the Planning Commission about the possibility of starting your meetings earlier, so staff went ahead and put this on the agenda for your action tonight. It's entirely up to you as far as what your preferences are.
I think the general discussion that we've had over the last few meetings was that there was no reason to wait until 6:30 for most of us, and that at least 6 would be a better time, even earlier possibly, but 6 at least. Anyone?
I really like 7, but that's just me. It doesn't really matter anymore.
Because you don't care. Is 6 a reasonable time to change the time? In that case, does that require a motion to change the meeting times in the future?
Please.
Yes? All right. I'll accept a motion for someone to have future meetings begin at 6 o'clock.
I'd love to make that. Oh.
You want to make that your last?
You guys are going to now meet at 6 o'clock.
We have a motion and a second that Jenna will try to figure out who seconded that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I think Barbara seconded.
Passes, passes unanimously. Item number 18, presentation of resolution commending Commissioner Jackie Peterson for her service on the City of Sparks Planning Commission. I think Karen Melby is going to be moving forward here.
As we're setting up for this item.
That's very pretty. He's got a bag full of pink over here.
As we're setting up for this meeting. Yes.
And pink
And
gloves.
Blanca, would you like some pink?
He's got pink gloves.
There you go, put the gloves
they're
on.
so soft.
They're yours. They're yours.
Yeah, we can do it that way. Is this working?
No.
No?
Yes.
Is
Oh,
it?
is it?
Okay.
Yes.
So this is Resolution 200, good number.
Oh, that is a good number.
Introduction by the Sparks Planning Commission, recognizing the contributions of Commissioner Jackie Peterson. Whereas Jackie Peterson was appointed to the Sparks Planning Commission on January 18, 2000, and has continuously served since that date, and was elected chair in the year 2003. And whereas the Commissioner Peterson served as an alternate since 2001 and was appointed to the Regional Planning Commission in 2010. And whereas Commissioner Peterson has unselfishly committed her time and knowledge to making significant contributions to the planning process for the City of Sparks during her tenure as a member of the Sparks Planning Commission. And whereas the Sparks Planning Commission and the Regional Planning Commission both meet on a regular basis, requiring Commissioner Peterson's attendance at hundreds of public hearings, workshops, study sessions, and neighborhood meetings. And whereas Commissioner Peterson has always available as a mentor, sharing her experience, knowledge, and her love of the color pink with the fellow members of the commission. And whereas every member of the Sparks Planning Commission, present and past, is proud to have served with Commissioner Peterson. And whereas the Sparks, and I'd like to add, it's not in the resolution, but as staff also, whereas the Sparks Planning Commission recognizes Commissioner Peterson's contribution to the Planning Commission and to the City of Sparks. Now and therefore be it resolved that the Sparks Planning Commission acknowledges and sincerely appreciates the invaluable contributions that Commissioner Jackie Peterson has made to the City of Sparks during her tenure as a planning commissioner, passed and adopted on this date, 20th of December, 2012. And we've even given you a pink frame with pink paper.
That's even better.
Thank you. Thank you very
Oh,
much.
thanks.
We will wait for your comments from the commissioner, so we stay on the agenda.
Oh, I'm just going to miss you all very, very much.
Well, public comment? Nothing public comment?
Oh.
Comments from the commissioners?
Oh, I thought you meant from me.
Yes.
Well, you're a commissioner.
Not anymore.
This for another.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Till we left this.
Got to have one from the traffic guy before we leave, Jackie.
I was hoping the traffic guy would be here.
Jackie, on behalf of the staff, I sincerely hope, and we all hope, that as you drive around our beautiful city, you take immense pride. In your tenure as planning commissioner, you watched our population boom. You survived an amazing amount of growth. I hope that all those great developments we worked on, you take pride in. And on behalf of the staff, we'd like to thank you for all you did.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I love the meandering disc drive.
That's right.
Yes.
Any other comments from the public? Any comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Peterson, would you?
Just thank you for this.
Jackie, I'd like to say I've been on, I know this is my ninth year, I think, and, you know, I really enjoyed working with you as a fellow commissioner, and not only here at the Sparks Planning Commission, but at regional, too. You're very astute, you're very aware, you're very knowledgeable when it comes to planning. You always seem to ask the right questions at the right time. Some I think of, but I don't know whether I was too afraid to ask or not, but you just jump right in and do it. And I'm very proud of you, Jackie.
Oh, thank you very
You bet.
much.
Jackie, I'd like to thank you for being my mentor as I started my journey with the Planning Commission, and I still have your phone number, so if I get stuck, I know to call you.
And Jackie, it's been a pleasure. You kind of got me started. I was pretty quiet for the first couple of years, but I think I've learned a lot in the 9 years.
You've gotten over that quick.
Yeah, you've gotten over that. Thanks, you guys.
Congratulations, Jackie.
I'll really miss you.
Thanks. I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're adjourned.
Are you sure?